This arrived in the post this afternoon, ordered on eBay. I've been after one of these for a while. This is an American built capacitor analyzer. Nice units these are. Lovely wooden box it comes in, looks like an oak box. Really nicely finished, dovetailed joints around the corners, sort of bit of quality, bit of kit really. Leather handle. Open it up. And this is the solar capacitor tester from the States. Now apparently these were imported by Hunt's Capacitors. It says Hunt's Capacitors, exclusive solar agents in the United Kingdom. So that's didn't know that. That was interesting to find when I opened it up. The first thing I thought about these capacitor testers actually was that they may only be 110 volts, but this model here is the where are we? This is the C6/20. This is a 240 volt version, which is nice because it means you don't have to mess around with step down transformers and all that sort of palaver. So this evening was just going to have a quick look at it to see what condition it's in and if it works okay. It's obviously had a new mains lead fitted, and it's been done quite competently as well, because I looked inside the plug and it's actually got a 3 amp fuse in it, which is reassuring. It's basically similar to the ICO that I've got, but the ICO's caused a few problems, and the ICO was a bit of a kit built unit, and it's all been wired with solid core telephone cable, you know, the stuff we use on the British Telecom used to use for their telephone cable. And it's awful, it's brittle, and it's been badly wired, and I don't think it's really worth spending any time to rewire it, because it's just not a particularly nice set. But I love the look of these capacitor analyzers. They look really sort of retro, and I'm sure they look pretty sort of stunning in their day as well. I mean, all right, we've got the eye tube on the left here, which is a 6E5, and we've got the rectifier to the right here, which is a foot number 4. Now you have to ask the reason, why does this rectifier need to be on show? Now the only thing I can think of, maybe to save money. If you see the filament light lit up, you know that the unit's on. Seems a bit quirky. We've got this sort of steampunk styled neon bulb here, and that's the leakage bulb. I can show you that nearer. You can see it's got like a split. You can see that. I don't know where the camera's focusing. It's got like a split 2 elements here between the gaps of the neons and where it strikes. Nice little toggle switch here on the left. The power. This is our power factor correction control, which is for capacitors, electrolytic capacitors. Give you an idea of what their ESR is like. We've got the condenser connection here on the left. We've got the center common, which is the positive, and for resistors on the right. We've got 3 ranges on the outside for capacitors. We've got 2 resistance ranges, which are the inner ranges, and then we've got 0 around to 5, which is for the leakage test on the capacitors. Now these capacitor testers will only go up to a few hundred microfarads. I'm not actually sure how. I think actually this one will only go up to 70 microfarads. And you think, well, for modern transistor radios, it's pretty limited on what it will do. But if you think about it, and valve radios rarely have anything over 70 microfarads anyway, so that's not going to cause a problem. So let's plug it in. What I do is I'll probably pop it up so you can see it a bit easier, and we'll switch it on and let it warm up. Now this is a removable lid, and it's got all the instructions in here of how to operate it, which is nice. So I quite like the idea of the removable lid. It's quite useful if it's if you want to work on a small bench or something like that. So let's turn it on and see what happens. Wait for it to warm up. Now you can see the magic eyes come out. Now the magic eye is very dim actually. Now I'm not sure if that's because the HT is down, or maybe the magic eye tube's weak. It could be the high tension's down. It could be that the capacitor tester itself needs recapping. but we'll have a look in a moment. So there's our magic eye, and actually it looks like in the camera it looks even dimmer than it does to my eyes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the capacitor up. Now, a word of warning about these capacitor testers: they carry a very high DC voltage on them, and you've got to bear that in mind, because if you forget about it and you've got it on the leakage test, you're talking about sort of up to 500 volts DC. A really unpleasant electric shock. Could be fatal actually, but you have to be very careful. There's no health and safety around in these days. You see these connectors here, uninsulated banana plugs. So what I'm going to do is this little capacitor here is a 10 microfarad at 25 volts. So I'm going to just connect this up to the capacitance tester. And then I'm going to zoom into the magic eye a bit so you can actually see what the hell's going on, because it's so dim that you probably won't be able to see. Let me just turn off the extra lighting I've just put on. It might be easier for you to see. Now, this is a 10 microfarad capacitor, so I'm going to go on the range, on the outside range, and 10 microfarad should be more or less right around here somewhere. Now you should see the eye open. You can see that it's at the top here. It's very, very weak, this tube, and it's peaked around there, and it's actually showing around 70 microfarads. Now that's a classic sign of a weak capacitor. You might think, well, it's that seems odd because it's a 10 microfarad. It should be reading lower, but often you find the case that where they read wildly out is because the capacitor is so weak. So let's try it on the shortage short test. Now I think I need to check the voltages in here to find out what's what, but if you wind this onto capacitors and then increase the voltage, got leakage at, I'm not entirely sure what voltage we're at, range 1. So I think we need to just check our voltage here just to see what voltage you're actually putting out of this thing. Let's just have a look at the Solutron, see what the Solutron says. And that's saying 40 volts. Okay, so let's connect that back up. Yes, that's 40 volts. Now I don't know what this control actually does when you adjust the on the leakage test. I don't think it actually does anything, but it does seem to make a difference to how bright the light lights up. So I'm going to have to check the instructions with that. So let's try it on the 0 range. Let's see what voltage that puts out. On the 0 range it's putting out about 15 volts, which is well within the rating of the capacitor. This capacitor is rated at 25 volts. So it's still showing leakage. So I need to check that with the instructions just to see what that is, but it does look like well, I know this capacitor is pretty dodgy anyway. Let's disconnect it. And so that's a short circuit. You put it together, it should show a good strong leakage. And you can see the neons lighting up quite well. What I will also do, just to check to make sure the rectifier valve's okay, and also that make sure that the caps are leaking, I just want to check its maximum output voltage, and I think it's 500 volts on its high range. So we're now, range 2's 180, range 3 is 230, range 4's 328, and range 5 is 480. So voltage looks about right. So I'm going for this magic eye, is a bit weak. So let's have a quick look at my box of junk, box of useful parts, and see if I can find a correct magic eye. Now I have got a couple of these magic eyes somewhere. Now I don't know if I've got the right type, because there's two bases to these 1E8s, and I know I've got a few kicking around. Just to find them. It could be also that rectifier is a little bit weak, and if I can find another rectifier, I might plug that in and just see what it's like. Now what have we got here? It's a 6E5, here we go. No, it's a 6E5 box, but it's not a 6E5 inside. Okay, let's have another look, see what we've got. Somewhere we've got a 6E5. Okay, so I've got found a couple of magic eyes. So let's swap them out and see if we get any improvements. So I've got two here, one strong and one is okay-ish / weak. So let's pull this valve out. Just hope it's not the same fitting. I'll work out which way it goes back in. Turn it off really. There we go. Let's put it back on and see what we get. Interesting, the other valve's got like a shield around it. Well, that's strong already, and that's the weak one. That's much better, much brighter. I don't know what it looks like in the camera. It's miles brighter here. So just check out. Yeah, we've got a nice bright magic eye there. So that's good. That poor old RCA is obviously a bit on its last knockings. So I don't think we're going to be able to do a lot with that. It's obviously had quite a lot of use, this valve tester. This valve's weak. It's a radio, it's an RCA valve in it, so I've replaced it with that one. But that's nice and bright. I'm quite pleased with that. It looks fine. I've actually got a stronger one here. I suppose we could try it just to see. This is a Japanese valve, actually, this one. So let's take it out and have a look. I don't know what make that is, but it says it's American. US Navy. Okay, let's try this one. What it would be nice is to put something around the outside of the tube to give it a bit of support in the middle of the chassis. So this should be super bright in theory, and it is. You can see straight away that's even brighter than the other one. So that's nice and bright, and that's the Japanese valve. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the intermediate one in, the one I put in first, because that seems to be absolutely perfectly adequate for this. What I would like to do is turn the valve holder around if possible, so it's actually the sort of like the opening eye opening is actually the bottom of the valve. So what I'm going to do next is I'll take the top apart, take the top off the, or take the chassis out and have a look to see what it's like inside. Just get that from the mains at the moment. I think that old RCA can go because it's obviously well past its best. There's a few bits in the cabinet that need sorting out. I don't know if you can see here, but there's where they've tightened the screws down. They sort of like over tighten them, and it sort of pulls away. It sort of bent the cabinet slightly. See there, so it dips down, so I need to try and straighten that out if I can. Let's just get these screws out and have a look, see what we've got. Hopefully, and also be able to date it roughly or narrow it down to at least a year. Maybe might even be a date in there, or a date code on a capacitor or something like that. Put the iron on ready. Bit of preparation. No. Okay, iron's on. The mains cable's been replaced, so there's a good chance that it's all been recapped recently. It certainly seems to be working okay. As I say, the high tension seems to be fairly strong. There's a good chance I would like to, if the magic eye is that weak, I think probably the main rectifier is probably pretty weak as well, and we can probably swap that out for a better valve. I suppose it's a tube, isn't it, really, because it's an American bit of kit. Right. Okay. do is remove this cover because nothing's not coming out very easily. And a screwdriver that fits. Screw slots will fill up with paint or something. Just turning. Maybe when you're working you don't realise how much grunting you do, and you play back one of your videos and you think, like Darth Vader breathing sometimes, just without the physique. Okay, so behind here is just the main selection section, so that's not what's making it stick. It could be them. Okay, we're out. Okay, let's have a look. Alright, and it has been redone. Okay, that's reassuring. It hasn't been done particularly nicely, but it has been recapped. If you can see here, these sort of exposed wires, this is all nicely done. We've got a couple of mustard caps here that have been replaced, and a mustard cap here. Soldering's a bit sort of as your father, but generally looks reasonably good. There's a couple of caps in parallel here. I'm just a bit concerned with what he's used as a reference capacitor, because there's one capacitor in here that has to be super accurate. This looks like just mains filtering caps here. I don't know what make they are. Turn them around and have a look. Oh, the Rubicons. Okay, so that's fairly reassuring. So they should be okay. Probably could do with a bit of heat shrink around those, but they're not going to touch anything, so I suppose that's acceptable. I'm going to touch up some of the soldering and joints here because that's a bit dodgy. I don't know if he's changed any resistors. Certainly left some bits loose in here. This screw and nuts are loose. I don't know what the hell that's about. It's down here and down here. Oh, this looks like oh, it just holds this bracket here. So it's obviously where he's replaced capacitors on the other board. So it's actually not in a bad state of affairs, really. I mean, it's it could do with a bit of a pot clean. Still got the original dog bone resistors here. There's a couple of resistors on the back of this Magic Eye tube. Might be worth checking those. I don't know what value they are actually, because there are these. It's one of these resistors with the brown body, a black splodge, and a blue paint mark. Is that brown, black, blue? Is that? I suppose that's 10 meg, is it? Let's measure it and see what it measures as. It measures as 10 meg. So we'll just check those. Likewise, I'll do this on the Solartron. Okay, and the Solartron's measuring 12 meg, so brown, black, blue, 10 meg maybe? Let's try this brown, black, green, so this should be 1 meg. And it's measuring 12, so yeah, about 1.2 meg. So they're probably a bit out of tolerance, but it probably won't affect the performance of the unit itself. Now here we go, look, good old Fred, 5th of the 2nd, 03, Fred May. I might look him up. I wonder if he's around still. We think the name Fred is going to be an old boy, but of course I could be wrong. He might have been 16 when he did this. So it's 2003, so it was done, what, 13 years ago. So it's obviously been used by someone recently, which is nice actually. So that's it really. That's the Solar CB-20. Be a nice piece of kit for testing, certainly the valve waxes and things like that. funky looking piece of gear as well, very sort of retro as well. So thanks for watching, and more to come.